Now, sticking with Standard Bank's Township Informal Economy report, I unpacked how to better craft business solutions to tap into a market that needs a lot of support to grow, with Naledzani Mosomane, Head of Enterprise and Supplier Development at Standard Bank.
So there's a couple of things that stood out for me. Firstly, the impact that this market has on job creation. Of the 250 businesses that we spoke to, they contributed to 7,500 jobs, which is immense. Another thing that stood out for me is just how marginalized women-owned SMEs within this economy are.
Yes.
We did see that the township informal economy is predominantly male-dominated,
Yes.
and many of the women-owned businesses that operate within this environment have to navigate the societal environment. So taking my kids to school, closing the shop, not getting access to funding, not understanding what is available for me. So it was painful truths, but also cemented what we thought from a job creation and economic impact perspective.
Well, that's actually a very interesting point, the fact that this industry is male dominated and the majority of women that are in it are actually doing it out of necessity, right, to put food on the table. But is there enough appetite? Because I know that ideally with funders, they would like to fund businesses that are able to scale and that are positioned to scale. Is there enough appetite to actually fund these hand-to-mouth businesses?
I think there is. If you look at the data in general, the funding gap for women-owned businesses in sub-Saharan Africa is 45 billion, right?
Yeah.
And not all of those businesses are established businesses. It's women operating within the environments, trying to make a decent living for their families. So is there an appetite? Definitely. But do we need to capacitate these businesses to run their businesses as sustainably as possible, to run their operations as optimally and effectively as possible, so that they can get access to these funding mechanisms? Definitely.
But does that mean then supporting and navigating, that support within the informal ecosystem, or is there an encouragement and work that is being done to kind of formalize these businesses, and how do they feel about that?
I think you need to follow a two-pronged approach, right? So there's women-owned businesses that are established and need support to accelerate their businesses and take their businesses to the next level. And then there's women-owned businesses operating within this informal economy that need a lot of support. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what type of support do we give across the spectrum? Because we do know, the data does say, women are better payers when it comes to facilities. And that should give incentive to anyone that's looking to fund a business. It's just providing the right support so that these women have the confidence to run their businesses as optimally as possible and make the tough decisions that I might have to outsource fetching my child from school to someone else, so that I can really make my business as sustainable as possible.
And talking about that support, I mean, the biggest gap here is in terms of money, but also there is other support, non-financial support. I do understand that you do have programs. Do these need to go hand in hand, and do the entrepreneurs actually have the insight to know that that support needs to go hand in hand?
So we run holistic enterprise and supplier development programs, which are a mixture of business development and funding post-development. So we have, for women in particular, our Basadi Development Program, which takes 100 female-owned SMEs across the country through a 12-month intensive business development program. And at the end of the program, not all of them, some of those businesses qualify to get access to grant funding for their business. So they have to motivate, what would I utilize that funding for? Why do I need the funding? So we're trying to match the development with the funding, because at the end of the day, while there is definitely a funding need, access to, a business development need, access to funding is a real need as well. And I do need working capital capital to buy my stock. I do need that equipment to manufacture whatever it is that I need to manufacture.
Yeah, and I mean, it's actually quite interesting because you're looking at, you know, the traditional banking industry, which is formalized and trying to support businesses that are not formalized. And I'm wondering then, you know, are there certain partnerships that you go for in terms of understanding the texture of that market so that you can be able to support them better? I know, for example, that there are fintechs that are getting into the space in terms of tailoring their funding so that it is appropriate for informal businesses. So what kind of partnerships do you actually look for here?
So we partner with business development service providers, so institutions that are qualified and certified to provide that business development.
Yeah.
We partner with institutions of higher education, so we have programs with the University of the Free State. We're about to start a program with Stellenbosch, or NQF accredited programs. We have a program with Gibbs for youth-owned businesses to provide that structured development.
Yeah.
And then we also are looking to partner with DFIs to help unlock that funding. So what DFIs will give us is the opportunity to de-risk some of our funding solutions. And outside of that, within the enterprise and supply development space, we have an enterprise and supply development risk appetite. What that means is if you're a black-owned business, you have a purchase order with a provincial government, we are able to fund that purchase order off the back of the contract. You might not have collateral. We are comfortable with that, provided we can vet the purchase order.
Yeah.
If you're a supplier to the bank and you are on our supply development program, you're able to get access to funding at preferential rates.
Yeah.
So we are trying to make sure that we can support these businesses by structuring different financial solutions tailored to their needs.
We've also spoken about the gap in terms of information accessibility, and I'm wondering then what kind of misconceptions are you seeing from these informal businesses in terms of how they see banks, in terms of how they actually navigate that trust, but also at the same time how you as a bank can position yourself as the first point of contact when it comes to support that the businesses are looking for instead of the last resort.
Banks are intimidating. Even if I think of myself applying for a role within a bank, I'm intimidated, right? So I think we need to accept that that is the real truth. And one of the ways to bridge that truth is to actually be in the communities in which the SMEs operate within. If I know that I operate in Soweto, my banker is here in Soweto, I can engage them. That creates a level of comfortability and a level of trust for me as a business, so that when I need support and I need you to help me with something, there's not that fear that I'm going to get turned away.
That was Naledzani Mosomane, Head of Enterprise and Supplier Development at Standard Bank.